one way to get ahead was to spend less than you make. And what I did with that money, instead of what a typical 18-year-old or 17-year-old would do, is buy a Camaro or buy a Corvette or blow it on who knows what, I bought a building in Massapequa. I fixed it up myself. I made some money. And I say, hey, this is pretty cool. I could keep on going. And I kept on going, doing that while I was...
Yo, what is up, everybody? My name is Matt Drouin, host of the Go Big Live Real Estate Investors Podcast, the show to watch and listen to if you are a experienced real estate investor, owns a couple of multifamily properties or single-family units, and are mystified as to what it takes to scale and do bigger deals. I am psyched out of my mind today to have a special guest on, somebody I just met by accident a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Larry Curtis, who is President Managing Director of WinnDevelopment and a member of the Board of Directors. He has led a full range of real estate development and acquisition activities for more than 35 years. He has been instrumental in helping the company grow from 3,000 units in 1986 to, drumroll please, more than 103,000 units, which Wynn currently has under management in 23 states and also the District of Columbia. Mr. Curtis's primary focus has been on the creation of affordable housing and historic rehabilitation developments. He is the past president of the National Housing and Rehabilitation Association, a member of the board of directors for the National Multi-Housing Council. A huge resume. I'm not going to get into the whole thing because I want him to actually tell his story, but very impressive resume, so to speak. And we're going to get into his journey and also how he did his first big deal. So welcome to the show, Larry. I appreciate it.
Great, Matt. Great. Thank you. So a little bit further background on me. So by the way, I'm a New Yorker. I live in Boston now since 1981, but I grew up in Massapequa, on Long Island. My father was a storefront real estate lawyer. 2 doors down from him was a sign painter named Cal Seinfeld, who is the dad of the famous Jerry Seinfeld. A little bit of my background. My father represented mostly individuals aspiring to own single-family homes, buying Cape Cod, split levels, but he had one big client when the term builder was used. The builder is not used anymore. It's developer, you're an investor, builder. People were builders. And as the story goes, the family story, maybe lore, one Christmas vacation, we were at a Christmas party at his house, the builder's house, and a 9-year-old Larry Curtis proclaimed to his dad, I want to do what he does. And what he did was he built homes and he lived in the big mansion on the hill. And so aspirationally, it was, driven by, at least at the time, less about doing well by doing good, as I am now driven by, but more about something that I think you're still allowed to say in the United States of America, as my goal was to make money, as many of you on this call are as real estate investors. I got my training as an architect. People enter the development field, the building field, usually from a finance background, sometimes from a marketing background, sometimes from a construction background, very rarely from a design background. Often people in the financing world that finance such developments see design people, less so today, but certainly in my early years as being a little kooky, a little crazy, non-bankable. So I had to, in my early days in my career, I would hide the fact that I was an architect in order to get development done. Now, with the greening of buildings, we'll get to this a little later, I lead with my design and value creation through good design background. So very early on, when most kids were working summer jobs, my back then minimum wage was $1.65 an hour. I worked whole summers to make that. I was the kid pulling out shopping carts from the shopping centers, to bring them back to the store. I worked at gas stations and I saved money. So early on, I learned one way to get ahead was to spend less than you make. And what I did with that money, instead of what a typical 18-year-old or 17-year-old would do, is buy a Camaro or buy a Corvette or blow it on who knows what, I bought a building in Massapequa. I fixed it up myself. I made some money. And I say, hey, this is pretty cool. I could keep on going. And I kept on going, doing that while I was in architecture school. I got licensed as an architect, and I came out to the real world and I realized that I needed um, more professional training in numbers and real matters beyond design. I went to a graduate program at Harvard that at that point in time was the equivalent of its now Masters in Real Estate program, which I currently teach in. But then it was called Master of Architecture and Urban Planning, Urban Design, and I got real estate classes. I got finance classes at the business school, classes at MIT, and I learned something more than call it arithmetic real estate development. But we're all fortunate in this field that it's in the end, real estate really is third grade math, and it's and the third grade math. If you don't get caught up in trying to guess what's going to happen to the fifth decimal point in the 10th year, you can make fundamental investment decisions that lead to long-term value, long-term growth. So that first deal, 602 Clocks Boulevard, Massapequa, New York, was the start of it. And then after I came out of school, I stumbled into several opportunities. Again, like most of us, opportunities has a way of dragging one through life, sometimes in a negative way, sometimes in a positive way. For me, it's been largely positive each step of the way. My first job, I worked for some guys that were interested in historic development, and we got a deal done. I kind of led the team in doing it. They had begun to make some money. They were off to doing what people that start making money do, and they were paying less attention to the business and say, "Here, Larry, you do it, you do it, you do it." And that for me was a great opportunity. Then I had an ideal opportunity come about. I had a guy that had just sold an oil business. I was hired to be his real estate guy, and I was I was all of 26 years of age, and the opportunity was such that. The dream job. And I realized that shortly after I joined, about a year after I joined, it was clear to me that they had a trader mentality, being in the oil business, and not what it takes in the real estate business to be focused on a longer term objective. Yeah, you could trade and you can get a 22% IRR by buying a deal at X and selling it, a year and a day later. But the real value creation in this field is for people that can finance deals with long-term fixed rate financing, hold them patiently, and let often inflation and aspects beyond one's specific skill set create value for them in the process. And this gentleman also had 6 sons, and I realized no matter how good I was as a real estate developer, no matter how smart and energetical I was, that the chances of me becoming son number 7 were 0. So I started thinking about other opportunities, and before I did, I, like a lot of things, again, opportunity finds its way. I'll tell a story which I think you'll all find amusing. I find it amusing every time I tell it, and it goes as follows. My wife, who's a real architect, she reminds me, a real architect, was out in an evening meeting. We just had our first of 4 sons, and the baby's crying. And what happens when the baby cries? I was told that one way to quiet him down is to throw him in the car seat and drive around and until they quiet down. I think for those of us that have kids, some of you may have used that technique. And lo and behold, the baby calms down, and I find myself 3 towns over from where I live, and literally drive by a site with a Winnie the Pooh like sign, land for sale, and jot down the number, and that. I go to the guy I was working with. I said, "Look, I want to build a multifamily deal. I want something in Massachusetts. It's called Section 40B. It's a anti-snob zoning, override local zoning." Anyway, he decided he didn't want to do that, and I did a little bit of research, and I tried to figure out who did do such thing. And the firm that I joined in 1987 and that I quickly became a principal in, which was 1/30th the size of where we are today, uh, took the bait. And I met with the principal of the firm. His last name is Win Companies, Matt described. And I said, I have an opportunity for you. And he says, great, we'll make you the broker. And I said, I'm really not interested in being the broker. I'm interested in being your partner. And he said to me, well, we don't make partners. I said, well, then you don't have the deal. And I controlled the deal. One way I was able to control the deal is, again, spend less than you make. I was able to put it under agreement, and I brought it to him, and I came in as a partner. So I was all of 27 years of age, and I have found that my best skill set, I'm not the best at crunching numbers. I'm not the best at administering construction. I'm not the best at marketing acumen, but I am pretty darn good at understanding federal and state programs and understanding how they mesh with uh, opportunities. And so, being the rainmaker of business, all of us, every building, anywhere, any city, any place, has a rainmaker associated with it. Somehow, it came to somebody to create an opportunity. Somebody put forth risk capital to make such a deal happen. And I kept going, and I kept on going in a variety of areas within real estate, in the building of new buildings for sure, but mostly in historic rehabilitation. In Rochester, we have, of course, the Sibley Building. We're about to do another one in town that'll be announced soon, and all throughout the country. Basically building new buildings inside old buildings, taking fabulous, iconic pieces of architecture and enlivening them, and in many ways enlivening the cities that they're in. I look at it as the anti-NIMBYism. If we take a vacant piece of land and try to build this building on it, it's boom, boom, boom. If we take this vacant building and want to rehabilitate it and build a new building inside the old building, we get hugs and kisses largely, and we get incentives through federal and state programs to make that rehabilitation work. It's not magic. We're not inventing programs. We're using existing public policy objectives to create affordable mixed income housing, sometimes commercial developments. The whole process, and Matt, jump in when you wish to. I call it the 4 C's: conceptualize. You got to dream up the deal. Capitalize. You have to bring forth the capital to make it happen. Construct. And yeah, cash out, making money in the process. The 4 C's. Uh, I've been enthusiastic about the business. I continue to be with a great team of people that's grown from 30 people total in the company in 1987 to a company of 4,000 plus people today. I think it's now, Matt, up to 26 states. Largely in multifamily. We've done an occasional hotel, occasional office building, but we're focused on multifamily. We're focused on solving this housing crisis, or at least making a dent in it. Every city, everywhere, we have this phenomena in the United States. It's a horrible phenomena that people that are doing everything right. This is going to sound like the bleeding liberal talking. I'm not. Uh, People that are doing everything right, good jobs, good wages. The housing market can't deliver housing for them at price points that they can afford. Why is that? There's this misperception that developers build luxury housing because they can make more money than building middle and affordable housing. They build luxury housing largely because the math doesn't work on building middle and affordable housing. All you on the call, on the podcast, have experienced that. You want to meet the objectives, you want to meet the policy objectives. You do the math, and you say, "Wow, this doesn't come close to working." So The old saying, you know more and more about less and less until you know all there is to know about nothing. Uh, we lead the league in that. So the historic buildings, the used housing, we have. What do I mean by that? Acquisition, rehab of existing housing. We do a lot of that, but it all has to start with the opportunity. I'll stop this segment with one little story of persistence. Years ago, I was when I was more in the field doing work, I would show up at in cities and towns and ask, show up at the fire department, show up at the police station, show up at City Hall, try to figure out where there are some problem projects in the city. And people talk, and you hear about opportunities. And I found myself in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and stumbling on an opportunity. I found out who the owner was. I called the owner. He says, "I'm not interested in selling." And all right, I call him 6 months later. "Look, Larry, I'm not interested in selling." I was persistent. And then finally, a few years later, he said to me, "Larry, stop calling me. If you call me, quote, one more time, I'm going to have you arrested." I respected his request to not call him. But the big but is, a year or so later than that, he calls me. That property we own today. It's been a fabulous undertaking. We've made a lot of money on it. We did a beautiful rehabilitation. The community loves us. And, was I a little bit of a jerk? Probably a little bit of a jerk. Was I a total, you know what? Absolutely not. But it's about persistence. I learned, I think, from that experience, I call it the quality of the opportunity is inversely proportional to the quality of the offering documents. The brokers on the call on the podcast may not like that, but it is you got to work the assets. You got to call your clients. Just putting together the fancy package or fancy blast email to me doesn't get any traction whatsoever. Old-fashioned legwork, old-fashioned brokerage, old-fashioned matching people to opportunities, old-fashioned cold calls. I started out. I neglected this part when I joined Win. How did I bring in business? I knew nobody in Boston. I came to the city when I came to graduate school here. I knew one person in the whole state, literally one family in the whole state, nobody in business. And through meeting one new person a day and developing relationships and a lot of cold calls from 1987 to 1989, I have these sheets of paper that I called every bank. I could almost recite them from A to Z, 1,000 calls. Some of those resulted in relationships and some of those resulted in deals. So why don't we leave it at that for now? Matt, you, I'm sure, have some follow-up comments or questions,
I
and
certainly do.
we could jump in and have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Larry, that's an awesome story. So many themes to pull out of that. We do have like 9 minutes before your heart stops, so I need to be sensitive to that. So, I want to talk about that first deal that was like a piece of dirt with the Winnie Pooh sign. Um, how did you know that you had kind of like an opportunity or a tiger by the tail, or was this sort of like just kind of like blind luck? Like, hey, I know this like little hack with the some anti-snob zoning for this property. I'm just gonna throw a number out there and buy the property. How did you really understand that it was a deal, or was it like you were so green, you were just like, I think there's something here. I'm going to get it locked up, and I'm going to shop it around and try to find a partner.
Well, it's yes, yes, yes to those questions. It was in a good market. It was in Andover, Massachusetts. For those that know Andover, it's a first class community, and it was an appropriate multifamily site. It wasn't it wasn't a site next to the selectman's house. It wasn't a site next to the richest guy in town. It was a site on the edge of town near an industrial park. That if this town was going to accept in a friendly way any multifamily housing, because communities then and even now see, unfortunately, they see sometimes bigger NIMBYs than the neighbors or the community themselves that see housing often as a negative, crazily, but a burden on schools, a burden on all the stereotypes that one puts forth relative to housing, crime, drugs, all that kind of stuff. And it is there's a lot of intuition involved. It was a first class community, but it's how do you get site control? Anybody could buy a piece of land, literally anybody. You just have to spend $1 more than the next guy, or the next gal. But what I learned is if you can option a parcel, obviously have legal site control, and make a public policy argument on why it's good for a certain purpose, in this instance, the mixed income housing community, if you pick the right site, it becomes a magnet for capital, and in this case, a magnet for a development partner, so I think that you have to pick the right site. If that site was in not an appropriate site in a town that couldn't support the housing that I was looking to build, or that I had to buy the land in 30 days or 60 days, it would have been a different story. So it is, every deal has, through the negotiation process, the worst judge of value anywhere, be it, Matt, your single family home that you may own, or somebody's apartment building. The worst judge of value is the person who owns it. They, of course, know their property is different, it's better, it's most wonderful. And so it wasn't smooth. There was a negotiation. By the way, in this particular case, it was 2 parcel owners, so I had to make sure I didn't have a holdout. There were wetlands. It wasn't a layup by any means, but site control in an effective way. It's the hardest thing to do in this business, certainly in the affordable business, or the historic business. Take a historic building without public subsidy, without federal and state historic credits, and usually without new market tax credits or some element beyond that. You could buy the building for zero, and the math doesn't work. Matt, you've probably looked at a bunch of deals, and
I'm in one of them right now. Yeah, I'm sitting in right now.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. But a seller may be, and particularly once you develop a track record of being able to close and do it, and not just tie it up and kind of flippantly, you can make opportunities happen, and you could be in the process actually do well by doing good. My business partner wrote a book, Doing Well by Doing Good, and he is, by the way, it's still the same partner today. Wonderful relationship of 37 plus years, and it is for the business more broadly. I think yes, we have some very experienced big-time real estate developers on this podcast, but we also have people that are the young Larry Curtis of years ago, and they look at the obstacles to growing a business. They look at the obstacles of difficulty every step of the way. It's boom, 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 as I say. For those that are old enough to know what Rock'em Sock'em robots are, the plastic boxes in the ring, that's what the real estate business is. And as somebody said to me years ago now that I love repeating, real estate would be a great business if it wasn't for people and buildings. And so we have that phenomena. But yeah, Matt, why don't you fire off 1 or 2 more questions, and I can give a rapid fire answer. I apologize, I got to jump off at in 3 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'll take 1 minute of your time, and this is going to be, and maybe we'll do a part 2 in the future if so be. So the question is, for those people that are out there, the young Larry Curtises of the world that, maybe own a small building, maybe own a couple single family houses that want to really get into the big leads, like what are the things that they can do like today, this week, this month to position themselves to making that jump in the future?
Well, I got some great advice from my attorney father, and I've provided this to my 4 sons. Each one absolutely knocked the cover off the ball, successful in their own right. and I've imparted this on them, I hope, and that is meet one new person a day, never touch the same piece of paper twice, be the one acting on it, do it, and don't use the words never, woulda, coulda, shoulda, forgot. So many times in my career, years and years ago, I did an 800 plus unit apartment community. My initial instinct, an existing apartment community, my initial instinct was, oh, I'm not going to get my butt in the car and drive up to blank to go see it. It's a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. But I did it, developed a relationship, met with a seller, literally met with him 10 times before we made a deal. And, bring the people back into this people business. And I think if you do that, move away from the computer, stop hiding behind the computer, as a friend of mine has said to me, and go out there, you're more likely to hear about an opportunity in the local coffee shop than just about anywhere else, and get involved in industry groups. Matt, you mentioned some of the roles that I've had in industry. I didn't start out as leaders of those organizations. Be on the committees, be out there, meet people, and it's fun. And you'll turn it into, a middle-class kid from Massapequa, New York, that started out with, nothing. I'm not the most successful real estate guy in the world, but have built a great career and proudly has done it in an area. We're not building industrial buildings in Omaha. We're actually building and creating in a profitable way, hopefully, not always, great housing development that serves a public need, and we're proud of it. And it's maybe it's bragging, but we've it's not bragging if it's true. We created this through an enormous amount of hard work. And I'll leave with this last thought, and that is, because I really got to run, I call it the unfortunate part about this business is somebody actually has to do the work. So yes, you have to find the opportunity, but the grind and the real grind of pushing things along, everything's tied for first place, but the hard work aspect is essential, and we all know that. And for those of us that wish to excel in our careers even more so, we have to continue to do it. You got to be the guy or the gal. And real estate's still one of the few entrepreneurial industries where you can do it. You can do it, and you could start with literally proverbial nothing, and you could do amazingly well. Matt, you've had a great run thus far, and I'm sure you're on the upward slope. And by the way, one last thing, downtimes are good for real estate. Everybody says, oh my God, how can I do deals? That's when opportunities are created. I call it the cardiogram. Opportunities. My best deals I did in 1992, big downturn, 2008, big downturn. And I don't know, are we there again? Maybe. And there's going to be more opportunity. I got to run.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Larry. Bye-bye.